This time on Kustom Works, we're going to rip the engine out of a BMW, we're going to put it into a taxi chassis, and we're going to reveal what the new, long-term, awesome Kustom Works project is going to be. Let's get to the workshop. Okay then, so initially on this project, we needed a really big straight six. No V engine, because it's got a very narrow front on the car. At the right time, at the right price, this Jag straight six came up, which is an absolute beast of an engine. 4.2, fuel injected. And I was thinking maybe this is the engine for this car. You know, it's an old-timey car, it's an old-school engine. Maybe this is going to be great. We offered the engine in with the gearbox, and this thing is a monster. It's very high, very hard to get any ground clearance. In fact, I often wonder why this Jag engine isn't used in more sort of cars, and it's just too tall. I don't know how you get under the bonnet of anything. And also it's got an auto gearbox, and we really want a manual gearbox with this. So, first off, we mock it up in the car. It's huge. But we could have got around that. The engine that should be in the car we're trying to build is a massive engine. That's a straight 8, so it's even bigger than this. It was quite big, and we probably could have got around that. But to get a gearbox, a manual gearbox to go on this, we could also have done that. But there's a bit of machining, bit of engineering, a lot of fabrication to make that work. Also, this car's got full fuel injection on it and no ECU. This engine being not used very much, there's not a lot of availability for a standalone ECU for it either. So we would have ended up running this on carbs. Now, running it on carbs starts to really reduce the horsepower. So you've got a massive engine and decreasing horsepower all the time. So we're going to decide against this. We can use this in something else or sell it. It's a good engine, it's great. And if someone's got a Jag they want to put it in, it'll fit. But for all of those reasons, we've decided to go with a different engine. Hey, remember in the summer when I fitted a ramp in the back garden? I thought it was great. Well, now it's a winter and I'm going to have to work on a car on the ramp, and I don't think it's quite as good. Still easier than laying on the floor. Anyway, the Jag engine in the new project is just ain't going to work, and the 4.2 Jag engine, there's like no parts for it now, no way to make it more horsepower, never that good an engine. So we had to fit up, it's not going to be right. So what we're going to do, we're going to put a 2.8 straight 6 out of this BMW in it. BMW, which was bought off of the internet. I'm going to be vague, I'm not going to show you the whole car, because the lad who had it seemed to really like this car and he's put a bit of time and effort into it, so I feel a bit bad. But I have the engine gearbox, and then my friend Jake the Guns, he will take this car and he'll probably do something with it there. So it's not like a 2-door Beamer's going to just be wasted. It will find a good home. But anyway, first up, so look underneath the car. Look what we're going to have to do. So we're probably going to just get rid of the exhaust. We're going to need all that prop shaft. We want the tank out of this. Engine and box. All these covers have got to go. We've got to get to the bolts underneath. And we're going to get this engine out. So let's get some tools. God, I wish I was in the workshop. It's all warm in there. I've had the heater on all morning. Genuine. It's just nice. And now I'm out there. Oh well. Let's get to the ramp shop. Cold garden.
You did that last.
Okay then, so the engine is now in the car. Well, I say in the car, it's like balanced on the chassis, and we have made, you can see down here, we've made some very rudimentary sort of engine mounts that have gone in there. There's obviously a lot more work to be done on those, but it's in there, and it's in good enough for this mock-up. There's so many benefits with this engine over the Jag engine. It's all in like such a short distance. There's more horsepower. That Jag's like 4.2 or something. This is 2.8, but it will have a lot more horsepower than that on carbs. And this will be more reliable. It's just a way better engine. This engine is it's a 1999 2.8 straight 6 out of a 3 Series. It's got so many benefits over the Jag engine. To get the standalone ECU for this, you know what I mean, it's a phone call away. This has also got cable throttle control, so no fly-by-wire, no expensive ECU. This really is as simple as modern engines get. It's all great, and also it fitted. What we have done, we've taken the air conditioning pump off it. We've left the power steering pump on at the moment, and we may leave that on forever, even though we're not going to be using it. What we're going to use on this is we're going to have a non-power steering rack, and then we're going to put a Vauxhall Corsa electronic power steering motor actually in the steering column, and that will give us power steering through the more modern electric way rather than having a power rack and all of that. Obviously the aircon pump's gone because this is a car with no roof. So I doubt whether we're ever going to need aircon, and when the roof does come up, that is really just for rain. You probably need a heater then. But if you want aircon, hey, it's the old-fashioned way. Drop the roof down and let your hair blow in the wind. It really is. It's just such a better engine than the Jag engine. And also, because it's a bit narrower, we've got it further back in the chassis. Because on the car that we're building, the radiator grille falls in line with the centre of the wheels. And that sort of thing is just paramount to getting the look of this car right. If the radiator grille is slightly further forward, you know, the car will look bull-nosed and heavy at the front. Why it's back keeps the front looking light and like the 30s race car. So we're going to get the grille back there, radiator. We might run the pump for the airbags off of the engine as well. We don't have to have a separate electric compressor. But we don't know that yet. I don't know. We might do that because we've got a lot of room at the front of the engine. You know, once the radiator's in, we've got like this strip of area to do whatever we want with. And as this car's on airbags, run the compressor off the engine rather than off a screaming little electric motor might be the best thing. So then, other reasons for using the BMW straight 6. In an ideal world, I would have took the 2JZ out of a Supra, but guess what? There's just none of them in the scrapyard. So that's out, and that's quite an expensive route to go. Whereas this gives you such a reliable engine, and because these are used by a lot of this sort of drifting crew, stuff like that, these are a popular engine. For this, I can buy a bolt-on supercharger kit. I can have it chipped, I can have the ECU remapped, and I can make a lot more horsepower with this engine really, really, really easy. Whereas with the Jag engine, well, who knows, you know, it's just like it's just an engine not used in modified stuff. And just for fact fans, same engine as in Cosmotron. So yeah, same engine as in Cosmotron, and that engine always worked great. And I don't even like to think how long ago it was that I built Cosmotron, but it's got to be getting on for like over 10 years. Also, this car has got to sit super low, so we've done a lot of work on the taxi front suspension. So here we have standard taxi front suspension. What we're doing here is we are airbagging it. So we've started making some plates on the bottom arm. We've got our bag that's going to sit there. At the moment the chassis is sitting in it. almost fully dropped sort of thing. We're hoping that at full drop we're going to have 3 or 4 inches underneath the car, although the body is going to be body dropped over the car to get it so it's got that ground scraping stance. One thing we have done, like, if you're anywhere else in the world, we've got this mad point scoring thing on, you've got to have like 12 points and different parts of the car add up to different amounts of points, and that goes to whether you've got to have the car specially tested either. Now, we've given away a few of those points, obviously by getting rid of the body of the car, that loses you a few. In the suspension, you loses a few, and you can't modify the chassis too much either. So we have to tread carefully around that, and that's why we've kept the taxi suspension, because that's what came with the car, and also it's built like the suspension off of a lorry. This stuff is all belt and braces, massive multi-pot disc brakes, all of this stuff's cast. It really is. It's more like working on a lorry than a car. We got all that, and we managed to get the chassis about 4 inches lower by cutting the mounts off of this front clip. We've cut the actual original mounts to the chassis for the suspension off, and then welded the suspension direct to the front of the chassis. This still needs a lot of gusset plating and finish welding, but we really have got the front of this car down super low, and of course the bags will bring it up for driving. At the back, what we've done at the minute, all we've done is taken the springs out, and we've taken the bump stops out, because the bags we're using have got a bump stop in them. So what we're going to use is the original taxi trailing arms and the whole rear sort of suspension setup. But what we're going to do is put airbags in the back so we can adjust the rear suspension. You may well remember on the 60s truck a couple of weeks ago, we made radius arms, we've got to make a panhard bar. We did all of that on that car that's over there. And that being an older taxi, that came with leaf springs, and we had to do all that swing arms and stuff and all of that fabrication. So I didn't know that later on they put all this suspension in the back of a taxi. So really what we could have done is found this axle set up and bolted it in that car. But hey, you live and learn, and if you want to bag a taxi chassis on the floor but not have to use any parts of the body, go with the newer taxis, because they've got coil springs, no old school leaf springs, and you can bag this. We will get this bagged in like a day, done. And we can see from here, this is sitting so nice, so low. We are really down there, and we're hoping the bottom of this chassis will be the lowest sort of mechanical point on the car. So yeah, another thing, as you're looking at this, you might think, why have you got the wheels on back to front? And I have at the minute, I've got the wheels on back to front, even though on a taxi, the offset on a taxi wheel is like insane. Like the nuts and bolts are this side of the rim of the tyre. They stick out so far. But we've got them on back to front because this is the kind of offset the wheels are going to have. The wheels on this car are going to be about 14-inch wide all the way round. They're going to be a low profile tyre over a 20-inch wheel, and that 20-inch wheel is going to have a 10-inch offset. So this is just all rim and inner, and then the middle of the wheel is set right back, and these wheels are going to stick right out on this car. It's going to be so wide, it's going to be so low. This thing is just going to be awesome, and thanks to that Beamer engine, it should be pretty quick as well. So then, that's it for the mechanical side and what I've done already and how I'm going to base this car and base this build. So, let's go in to the office and then look on the computer and let's have a look what this car is going to look like and how many images of it, unmodified and modified, I've managed to find online. Okay then, so the car that all that chassis and stuff will be is going to look like this. except this is the original one. And as the title of the show might say, this is Kustom Works. That is not a customised car, that's a restored car. In fact, in this case, it's just a rendering. It's so rare. So let's have a look at what it's actually going to look like. Okay, and so this is the car that we're going to build. It is the 1930 Mercedes SS. I've tried to research this car more than just finding this one rendering. The rendering that I've shown before is of the original car, but this car in its modified state, there seems to be sort of, I don't know, like, there's these two pictures and one picture from the rear, which I'll show you in a moment. They literally are the only pictures I can find of it in this wide body state. Because as I said before, that other thing, that is an original car, and restoration is not our business. Taking things to pieces, painting them, putting them back together, not for me. It's got to be a little bit different. So what we got here? We've got almost a standard SS Mercedes, but then it's been wide bodied over these like 20-inch deep dish wheels. They're being made in America at the moment because there's just no one here that could make a wheel like that. And of course we're building that chassis with the BMW engine in it, and then I'll be making this body over the top of it. And basically everything you see in this picture, from the chrome grille, the headlights, these little lights, like I'm just going to say everything you see in that picture I'm going to make from scratch. This is not going to have the door handles off an old Jag on it. This is not going to have bits and bobs off other cars. This is all going to be made an exact replica, from the dashboard to the trim inside, the door cards, everything. The only thing is, of course, it's not going to be a replica because it's got that big Beamer engine under the bonnet, these fat rims and this wide body kit. Okay, so this is the rear of the car. Now, the only thing that I don't like, and the bloke who's asked me to build this car doesn't like, is this spare wheel on the back. Sticks up way too much, looks a little bit ridiculous. I did think it'd be super cool if this was on an actuator and it sunk flush and then at the push of a button came out, but we're not doing that. So the car will have, certainly this part, it's standard rear, and then it's massive. These must be banded out from the originals, like 10-inch. To get it that wide, and that's why that car is just so wide and so low. Another reason for having this is that I'm hoping to get a retractable hardtop into this boot area that comes up and meets the screen, so that obviously this car isn't going to sunnier climes, it's going to stay here in the UK, so probably a roof will make it a little bit more usable. So it's got a fabric roof on this original, but hopefully we're going to get a proper roof to fold out of the boot and over to give you a bit of cover. Not having that. Everything else we're having, even down to just these two little red lights just here, we're going to have those. And then I think I'm going to hide all the lights because this car will need an MOT. We're going to have all the lights hidden in this sort of shadow void. So this is exactly what you get. And believe me, I'm going to build exactly this car. It will look just like that. And like I was saying, we had problems with the Jag engine. In this, between here and here, to get that Jag engine in there, it would have been touching under the bonnet and it would have been a little bit too low, and then all those other problems made it a non-starter. But you can see that if that is a 20-inch wheel, so probably with the low profiles, like 2 inches either side, so you got about 24-inch there. Beyond that, there's probably about only another 8-inch above the wheels for the whole car. So we really have had to get the engine right down in that chassis, more than we ever thought we would. And it's just a difficult car to plan, just to make it all work. Even sort of getting the roof to go in the back. By this point, under this section of the body, that will all be the top of the suspension, the panhard rods, stuff like that, the top mounts for the airbag. So just to make the roof fold into the boot is going to be really tricky. But just think, when it is folded in, look, the roof is only this high. This car is so wide and so low. This roof will come up to my waist. This thing is going to be unbelievable. Okay then, so that's it for this week. Don't forget, next week we're probably going to have the 60s truck back. That's got all of that stuff on the back, and that is a really exciting project. And don't forget that over the coming months, that SS Mercedes is going to be coming together, and it's going to be an awesome project. That, however, is all in the future. Don't forget, click, subscribe, bell icon, all that stuff that I've said it before. You know what I'm on about. Join me next week for loads more hot rodding fun. And until then, thank you very much and good night.